This is a Friday Shoes production. Our target today, from lesson 1-4, page 41 in the book, I can add integers. Adding integers. They have an example there, -2 plus -4 plus -3 equals -9. Well, that equation is an example of adding integers with the same signs. Notice that the sign of the sum is the same as the sign of each addendum. What they're saying is the sign of each one of these right here, which is negative, equals the same sign as what you would call the answer or the sum, the total. In general, when you're adding integers with the same sign, add their absolute values, meaning add all the number parts together, and then assign the same sign, meaning the add or the positive sign or the negative sign, whichever one is there. So the sum has the same sign as the integers. Their examples are -7 plus -3 there is equal to -10. It's like they added the 7 and the 3 and they put a negative on it. Here we have 5 plus 4, and both 5 and 4 are positive, so therefore the answer will be positive. But basically, in general, when you have the same signs and you're adding, your answer, your sum will be that sign. Let's take a look at an example here. -4 plus -2, they like to show it with a number line, so I'll show that first. When we use a number line, we always start at 0. So here we are at 0. Now it says -4, then add -2. So from 0, let's go to -4. And there we are. We're at -4 now. And let's add on -2. Let's add on -2 more. -2 means we're going this direction still, the negative direction. So there we are. We're at -6. Well, as we stated in the other definition at the top, when you have -4 plus -2, and sometimes they like to use parentheses, so I'll use those here. That's going to be the same as adding the absolute values of both these numbers, -4, -2. That'd be 4 plus 2, which is 6. And then we put the negative on it. So there you have it. -4 plus -2 is equal to -6. How about you try it for these three? Pause, do the math, and then restart and see how I did it. Here goes A. If you look, they're both the same, and we're adding. Therefore, I'm going to take the absolute value of these and add them together. That's 3. The absolute value of -2 is 2. Add those together, you get 5. And what was the sign of each one of those? Negative. So you have 2 negatives. So they're the same. So you just add up the numbers, put the negative sign on it. Same with B here. 1 plus 5. It sounds, we're going back to like first grade here, but these are both positive numbers. Therefore, we just add the absolute values, 1 plus 5, which is 6, and then put a plus on it. And in general, we don't put the plus on it, so there it is. There's your 6. I should be circling my answers too. And our last one, -5 plus -4. That's going to be, again, they're both the same sign. Therefore, all you have to do is add the number parts, or the absolute values, what they call it. So we have the -5 plus the -4, which is 5 plus 4, which is 9. And we put a negative on it. How about adding integers with different signs? It says to add integers with different signs, subtract their absolute values. The sum has the same sign as the integer with the greater absolute value. So if you look at 8 plus -3, they're saying take a look at the absolute value of 8 and -3. Well, 8 will have a larger absolute value. Therefore, the end result will be the same sign. 8 is positive over here. Therefore, the answer will be positive over here on the right. And in this case, they say subtract the two absolute values. So you have 8 and 3, and you would just subtract that to get your 5, and then put your plus on it. In this case, absolute value would be 8, absolute value would be 3. Subtract them, you get 5. But notice which one of these has a greater absolute value? The 8. And that one originally had a negative on it, therefore you'll have a negative on the answer. That's in the definition. There's other ways to look at this. Take a look at example number 2. Show you a different way. First of all, which number, just the number part, not with the negative or the positive, which number is greater? Well, the 5 is greater than the 2. That's really doing absolute value in your head. All you have to do is, if you know that this one right here is the larger number part, 5 is the larger number part, you know that the answer is going to be positive because that 5 is positive. Therefore, I know that I have a positive 5. I have a negative 2, which the absolute value is going to be 2. I'm going to subtract these two and get 3, and the answer will be positive. I'll leave it that way. How about number 3? Which one has a greater absolute value? Well, the negative 4 will have a greater absolute value. It will be 4. The other one is 3. So the answer will be the same sign as the larger absolute value. So the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. It's going to be a negative answer because that is the larger absolute value. Another fast way to do these is I like to just show, hey, how many negative 4s, or how many negatives do you have? You have negative 4, so I put 4 negatives. And I say, how many positives do you have? You have positive 3, right? Well, when you're adding these two things together, we have 3 positives and 4 negatives. And match them up, and here's what will happen. Each negative will go with a corresponding positive. As I cross them out, what's left over? Looks like it's negative 1. That's the answer. So you're going to have 4 negatives, 3 positives. You're adding them together. You're going to have a negative 1. Again, the definition way would be 4 minus 3. Take the absolute values and subtract them. You'll get 1. And then look at which one has the larger absolute value. Well, the negative 4 does, so therefore it's a negative. We'll have a negative 1. Both ways to do it. How about you try these 3 right down here? Stop the video, try them, and come on back. Here I go. I see that these are, one is positive and one is negative. So I know I'm going to have to take the absolute values and subtract them. 7 and 5. Subtract those. Then I look, which one has the greater absolute value? 7 does. 7 is positive, so the answer will be positive. It's a positive 2. Let's look at E here. Negative 6 plus 4. We've got, again, they're different. One's a negative, one's a positive. Therefore, I know I'm going to have to subtract the absolute values. That's in the definition. You get 2. Then I have to determine which one has a greater absolute value. Well, the negative 6 does, therefore the answer will be negative. And then F, negative 1 plus 8. What would we do? Well, subtract the absolute values. You get 7. And which one has a greater absolute value? 8 does. 8 is positive, therefore the answer is positive. What if there's 3 or more? Well, let me read you a few things here. It says two numbers with the same absolute value but different signs are called opposites. I believe we discussed that in class. For example, negative 2 and 2 are opposites. An integer and its opposite are also called additive inverses. If they add up to equal 0, additive inverses. So the sum of any number and its additive inverse is 0. And you can see their examples. Again, some simple things that we talked about in class. Look at number 5. As the example, they say negative 4 plus negative 12 plus 4. We can use some simple math here, knowing that we can use the commutative property and switch things around. I will show you that we have negative 4 plus negative 12. I like to regroup and put these together because I know that negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Then I'm going to add negative 12 to that. Well, I know additive inverse and an identity property here, 0 plus negative 12 is going to be negative 12. There's our answer. How about you try these last two? stop the video, and I'll get this one out to you in just a moment when you come on back. Here's how you do J. You take 33, you add your negative 33 because we can switch around all addition. And then we have plus 16. When we add 33 plus negative 33, additive inverse, they're opposites, they're equal to 0 when you add them. Still have plus 16 here. Now let's add our 0 plus 16. There's our final answer, 16. Pretty simple. How about K? We got 3 plus negative 2 plus negative 10 plus 6. How about we put all the positive numbers together? So I'm going to reorganize this using the associative property. So I'm going to put 3 and 6 together. I'm going to put negative 2 plus negative 10 together. I'm going to do these two. That's going to be 9. Put our plus. I'm going to add these two together because I know that's a simple math. That's the simple math where we can add the two numbers together, get the 12, and we put a negative on it because they're both negative numbers. So we got 9 plus negative 12. Those are, one's a positive, one's a negative, so I have to do the, okay, what's 12 minus 9 in my head? Okay, that's 3. So I know I have to do the absolute value and then subtract the two numbers. And then, which one has a greater absolute value, the negative 12 or the 9? Well, the negative 12 will have a greater absolute value. So therefore, the answer will be negative. Remember, you can rewatch this video or read the examples in the book. Or, of course, we have some personal tutor videos online through the textbook as well. This has been a Friday Shoes production.